this is John Colo with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. As you guys can see, I'm in a microgreens farm right here, right now, and where I'm in the world, I'm here in Baltimore, Maryland at City Hydro. This is City Hydro Vertical Farm because they're growing things vertically up the wall. We're literally sitting now in a 10-foot by 15-foot room. This is not huge, and this farmer here literally makes $100,000 a year. That's, gross income, not revenue here, a year. And if you guys want to learn how he does that and how he grows microgreens here, check the link down below. Actually, I was at this very farm 1 year ago, just about at this time, and that video now has over 650,000 views. It's one of my best watched videos, probably the #1 video on microgreens. And when you guys watch it, you'll know why it's the #1 video, because we go through the gamut. I mean, this guy, Larry, has got it all worked out. He's basically come up with a system to grow microgreens so that anybody could do it. It's like Mel Bartholomew. You guys know Mel Bartholomew? He's like, the guy that's credited to making square foot gardening. He came up with a method for gardening for people at home, so it's really easy. So I mean, that's what Larry did. He basically systematized things. He uses certain different pads and certain techniques so that you guys have success when growing microgreens. So once again, check the link down below to watch that video we did here. I mean, I'd call it an award-winning video, but I didn't get no awards for it. But anyways, it has lots of views. We're not going to talk about like how to grow microgreens in this video. That's the last video. But what we will talk about today are the 10 biggest mistakes you guys can make when you're growing microgreens. You know, Larry's been doing this a long time. I've been to many different microgreens farms and growers, and I've seen the problems. I've talked to people growing microgreens. I've heard about the problems, and I don't want you guys to have any of the problems. I don't want you guys to make any of the mistakes, to have to throw out your seeds, throw out your batches when you think they're bad when they're not. So now we're going to literally get Larry the expert to show you guys the 10 mistakes that most likely happen to you. So if you make sure you don't do these things, you can be success growing microgreens. And I want everybody out there watching this, no matter what time of year it is, no matter where you live in the world, literally apartment in New York City or, in Hawaii, in a nice condo in Honolulu, you guys can grow microgreens because you don't need a lot of space, and these are the most nutritious foods on the entire planet. And once you get a system established to grow the microgreens, you literally have 1 tray a day you could be harvesting on a continuing regular basis, and you want to grow different kinds of microgreens so you can get different nutrients in you and your family, so you can basically do anti-aging to yourself. These are the most anti-aging foods on the planet. They're also going to help you lose the weight because they also have the least amount of calories, and they also have the most disease prevention properties. Like, oh my God, let's not talk about the broccoli microgreens. I mean, they've done amazing research on those. So let's get into this episode. The first thing I want to ask you, Larry, is Larry, how has it been since I made that video for you last year at your farm? Like, what's happened?
Oh, it's been amazing. The amount of people that we've trained, the amount of people that have come in to the City Hydro to learn how to grow. We've probably done 125 people plus so far this year with our free training. They come in for 2 days, they learn how to grow. The response to your video has been phenomenal. And the amount of people now that are growing pure microgreens using just water is skyrocketing. It's just unreal.
Yeah, I mean, microgreens, they're the easiest thing to grow. If you're been wanting to put out a garden outside, right? Gardening outside takes a lot of time, right? To get a tomato, you gotta plant the seeds, you gotta make the plant grow up, then you gotta make sure the flowers turn into a fruit. Maybe 70 days you're harvesting tomatoes, maybe if you're lucky, if the bugs didn't get it or the birds didn't eat them. And the microgreens, since it's indoors, you control everything. Literally, it's just water, some seeds, and in literally about 2 weeks, you're having some food to eat. So once again, microgreens, everybody should be growing microgreens. All right, Larry, so what is the #1 biggest mistake that people make when growing microgreens?
Right, so the #1 biggest mistake I find is people get mold in their microgreens. And mold is normally caused from overwatering and too much water in the tray, or they're spraying the top of the microgreens with water when they're in the vegetative state. So here we have a rule of thumb. In germination, you only water from the bottom. When in when in germination, you water from the top. Water from the top, only spraying from the top. You gotta
let the seeds down. Yeah.
Exactly. And when it's under the lights or in vegetative state, you water from the bottom. Both of those two things will help you curtail the amount of mold that you get in your trays. Also, we don't use any fans.
You don't use fans?
We don't use any fans on our microgreens. A lot of people say, oh, you got to blow fans on the microgreens, help dry them out and stuff like that. We found that putting the fans on, it actually blew the mold spores into the other trays.
Wow.
Because we grow so close together and we're such a confined area. So we actually figured it out. It's fix the watering, which is your issue. Once you fix the watering, you don't need any fans. You don't have any mold. Right?
Wow. So what about like, I guess we're going to talk about this in a minute, but what if there's like more humidity in the air in certain locations, then will you get more mold? Because even though you're not necessarily watering, the plants are going to get more moist.
Right, so we keep our grow room between 35 and 50% humidity. The lower the humidity, the better, because there's less humidity in the air. Mold loves humidity, right? If it's more humid in your grow room, then your microgreens are going to get nice and damp on the top. And the mold, that's what they're attacking. They're going after the dampness in there. And we keep the grow room between 68 and 72 degrees, right? Prime growing temperature, prime growing for humidity.
Cool. And so how does mold appear on the top, like white fuzz on the top of the microgreens, or does it actually appear in the root zone, or how does that work?
Right, most of the mold that happens on the top of microgreens. So you'll see looks like a fish, a spider web on the top of the microgreens. That's the mold. Most of the mold that people call mold in the bottom are root hairs. And the root hairs, people actually confuse root hairs a lot of times with mold. They don't have any mold issues, but they have root hair issues, and we're going to talk about the root hairs in a little bit.
All right, cool. So yeah, number one is mold, and get your watering down, right? When you're germinating them, water from the top, because the seeds need the water. They don't have the root hairs to pull up the water yet, and when they're already in vegetative, they sent the roots down, then they'll suck water from the tops. But don't spray them directly. You're just asking for it. It's like, don't water your garden in the middle of the day. Top water, just feed them at the root zone where the plants literally need the water. All right, Larry, so what is the big mistake number 2 that people make?
Biggest mistake number 2 is root rot. A lot of people get root rot, and root rot happens when there's too many seeds or seeded too densely. So we seed on these pads here, and if you seed too dense and you got big clumps of seeds like this, you should have a nice and smooth out, and so the seeds should be out like this, not in a clumped area like this. What happens when they're in a clumped area like this is the seeds on the top will start to germinate and the seeds on the bottom will start to rot. And so it'll cause root rot in this area, and you actually pick up the microgreens like this and they're all rotting and everything on the pad because they're just too dense. You want to seed like this. Our recommended amount of seeds is a little more dense than most microgreen growers seed. We recommend 100 milliliters per 4 pads, right? If you're just starting out and you're a newbie and you want to learn about it, probably drop it down to about 75 milliliters per 4 pads, and then work your way back up to 100 milliliters for 4 pads, and make sure that you're pushing the seeds out so as not to cause root rot or what they call dampening down.
Dampening off? Or?
Dampening off.
Yeah, sure. So basically what you want is you want single file only, please, right? You want one seed in the area, maybe it's kind of touching its neighbor, but they're not like stacked up on top of each other. That's definitely a no-no. So would it be true to say, Larry, that on the root rot issue would be better to underseed versus overseed, which can then help your issues, even though you might not have a nice lush tray of microgreens, you'll still have some microgreens, but at least you're not going to have the root rot?
Right, and so we tell a lot of our clients that come here to learn how to grow that are having issues with overseeding, cut it down to 75 milliliters, put less seeds on it, but you still got a really nice pad of microgreens with even 75% amount of seeds on it versus the 100 milliliters of seeds. Still a nice pad of microgreens.
Cool. So yeah, that's mistake number 2. Don't make that mistake. Make sure you seed properly, not too many, right? And it's better to do under than over. So Larry, what's the third mistake that people make?
Third mistake, root hairs. Confusing root hairs with mold and throwing out. And I'm going to tell you, when I first started, I was throwing out tray after tray after tray. I was looking at the trays and they all had this white fuzzy stuff down by the roots. It looks like mold, it's white. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got mold. And I was throwing tray after tray out. And my wife comes in and she says, what are you doing, Larry? And I said, all these trays have mold in it. She said, Larry, that can't be so. You've got to be doing. I said, no, it's that seed guy. He's selling me moldy seeds. So I called up the guy over at Mountain Valley Seeds or True Leaf Seeds about it, and he said, Larry, get a magnifying glass, take a look at those things and hit them with a little bit of water, and they'll jump back because it's living. Those are root hairs. They look exactly like mold. Would you like to see some?
Yeah, let's see some, get some out. All right, so this is basically a whole tray that just got seeded and is now growing. If you guys look closely, you'll see these little hairs. So I'll show the camera while you talk about it.
So those are root hairs. So actually what it is the roots sending out little feelers to get more nutrients in it. They're not mold. It looks like mold because it's white. It's actually root hairs. They'll dissipate. Some of them get pretty dense, but they don't cause any other issues. They're not bad for you. You can eat them. They're part of the plant. They're fine.
Cool. So how can somebody determine if it's root hairs or not? So if they got like a magnifying glass to look, and then what, you pour some water on them and they move, or what happens?
To make sure, if you're concerned that you have mold and you have these root hairs, the root hairs are in the entire tray. It's not just a little section of the tray. The entire tray has root hairs in it. All your pads, all your substrate that you're growing on, even your soil will have a little bit of root hairs in it, not just a little spot. If it's mold, it's normally in just a little spot on 1 or 2 pads. It's not towards the entire tray. The entire tray is covered with some kind of white fuzzy stuff. 9 times out of 10, it's root hairs.
I see. So then once the microgreens get taller, right, can you still see root hairs, or at that point, if there's some white fuzzy stuff at the top, is that mold?
Yeah, so as the microgreens get taller, the root hairs stay down towards the bottom. They don't migrate up the plant. They're only at the very bottom. They're normally about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch deep at the very bottom of the plant, and it covers the entire plant. If it's mold and it creeps up, it'll be up near the top, near the leafy part, not too much towards the bottom. Now, if it turns gray, that's root rot. And now you're getting root rot from some other seeding too dense or whatever. But if it's just staying at the very bottom, it looks like cotton at the very bottom, little cotton balls, and you hit it with some water and it jumps back, those are root hairs.
I see. Now, would mold always be white, or does mold come in different colors on the microgreens?
So mold comes in white and it comes in black or grayish colors.
So if it's gray or black, then that's bad for sure.
For sure.
And if it's white, could be root hairs if it's near the bottom. If it's up near the top, like on the stem or on the leaves, that's definitely mold.
Right, so if it looks like a spider web on the very top, that's definitely mold, right? I've never seen green mold in microgreens. I've only seen white and black.
Cool, so if you have microgreens that are starting to mold, like, I would take them and put them in my garden outside to see if they'll just grow, because it doesn't matter. Once the sun hits it, it'll kill it, all this stuff. Now, the other question I have for you, Larry, is like, if somebody's not selling the microgreens, just for sale, and they just want to like somehow still utilize the microgreens, like, if we eat the mold, is that bad for us? I mean, what, cheese is mold, right? That blue cheese stuff. Can you just take the microgreens and cook them up, and that's going to kill the mold, and then we're fine if we eat them? Or, I mean, what's your take on that?
So I personally, I would just, if I had mold in a certain area here, I would just pick that moldy spot off and throw it out. And then I would take some hydrogen peroxide and spray it around the microgreens, and spray it on the lid maybe as well if they're still in germination, and kill it. And that way, this rest of the
isolated area you would totally kill, remove, get rid of, and then you would let the rest of the flat continue out for its grow.
Right, and if it's root hairs, it normally happens in germination. Most mold issues happen in vegetative state under the lights. Every blue moon, though, you get some moldy seeds from the grower or from the seed guy. That as soon as in 2 or 3 days after you're growing, you'll start to see a spider web coming out of before the roots start to come out. You actually see a spider web starting to come out of the seed. That's moldy seeds from their seed seller, and you need to contact your seed seller and tell him, hey, I found mold in my trays, I found mold in my seeds, what do you think? And he knows. I mean, because you're not the only one reporting it probably.
Right, yes.
So he'll know. And our seed guy is really great about fixing that issue for people that have issues with moldy seeds. And it does happen. It does happen.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is get proper seeds, but we're going to talk about that mistake in a minute. So, all right, Larry, so what is mistake number 4 that microgreens growers make?
The biggest issue that I have in the grow room is fruit flies. I have a lot of fruit flies off and on because I have a lot of guests and a lot of people come in and out of the grow room. They might have been at Whole Foods before they came here. They might have been at their farm, and one of those little critters got on them at the grocery store or at the farm. They came in here and they thought they died and went to heaven. I mean, there's so much greenery in here and so much sweetness happening. Is fruit flies. I don't have any other issues with gnats or aphids or any other big big produce, what I call big produce issues, I have fruit flies. And we have a really good way to get rid of the fruit flies. We have a shop vac that we actually vacuum out the trays with as we get the fruit flies. And we also set up a fish tank aerator thing with some Red's Apple Ale. So we put Red's Apple Ale in here with some dish soap and 2 cups of water with this fish tank type aerator bubbler and hook it up to a fish tank, put this down, and what it actually does, it creates a tower of foam from the Red's Apple Ale.
What's Red's Apple Ale? Like, I don't know what that is.
Red's Apple Ale is the stuff they sell at the liquor store. It's apple ale that smells like rotting apples.
So it's like you could probably use some apple cider vinegar, but
you could add apple cider vinegar as well. The only problem with the apple cider vinegar is it might cut the bubbles down that you get from the soap powder.
The bubbles from the CO2 to bubble. Yeah, all right.
So the bubbles, the Red's Apple Ale really makes a nice, almost like an ice cream cone effect, and those fruit flies fly right in it, and
they get stuck.
They get stuck and they can't leave. It's great. We actually have a video on how to make this.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll put a link down below to Larry's YouTube channel so you can check out all his videos there. So, and then so fungus gnats, it's not an issue for your growing method because you're not using like a coconut coir or a soil medium. You're using the pads that actually you'll learn about in a little bit because choosing the right medium to grow your things in. But what would people do about that?
So a lot of people, they grow in soil, and instead of sanitizing the soil after every time they use it, they just keep reusing the soil over and over again. Well, you should be sanitizing, because if you have a gnat and he lays his eggs, or she lays her eggs, she lays her eggs in the soil, and you don't sanitize that soil by heating it up and killing the larvae and the eggs in that soil, the next planting you give, out they come again. So you're fighting a losing battle. You need to keep on top of it. Aphids, I don't have any aphids. I've heard of people having aphids in their grow room. I think they might be growing other larger plants in the grow room that's attracting the aphids.
Yeah, I mean, have clean and sterile conditions, basically, otherwise. And follow Larry's system that he's devised to minimize any problems you guys are going to have in the first place. All right, Larry, so what's the next biggest mistake that growers make when they grow microgreens?
Underwatering and overwatering. And what does that bring? Also, that goes back to the mold and the root rot. Overwatering, underwatering. So we have this system of watering. It's basically, we use this nice wand. I call it the Earl Schreiber paint job.
Earl Schreiber, yeah. So that was like a guy you could get paint any car for $99 or something, maybe one.
Exactly. So it's like painting a car. So it's back and forth, back and forth.
I'll raise that up there.
Right, like this for 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, giving a full coverage up and down, up and down.
And this is only when their seeds are germinating and they haven't made the roots into the pads yet.
Exactly. This is only in germination you're watering from the top. And we use these lids also, so you would also spray the lids for another 10 seconds, making sure you create a nice moisture barrier inside the tray. Now, when you're watering from the bottom and the tray is on the rack, basically what you do is you take the tray, let me turn it around here a little bit, and you tilt it, and you see some water building up in the bottom down here. The water builds up in the bottom. If you can bring the water up to your first knuckle, right, that's plenty of water in the bottom of the tray. You don't need to add any more water. But if you needed to add more water, basically all you do is just pour a cup of water in here, swish it around a little bit.
So this is on the side of the tray where it just goes right down to the bottom of the tray. You're not actually watering it onto a pad.
Right, exactly. And that's why we left this opening
border. Yeah, many
tray.
growers don't actually do that because they want to maximize their space.
Right, so we actually opened our pads that only fit. There's 8 pads per tray, and they butt them all the way up against one, and they leave about an inch gap in the bottom here. That's to be able to check the watering. There's a rhyme to our reason.
Right.
A reason to our rhyming or whatever.
Good deal. So if somebody wasn't using your system, like how would they control?
So they would control the watering basically the same way. You still, when you're watering in soil and everything like that, you want to make sure that you don't mist from the top when it's in vegetative state. That's the biggest issue that most people have, is they think it needs a little foliage spray on the top. Foliage spray on the top of a microgreen, when it's so dense, what happens is the water gets down between the stems, and the stems are together, and the water will get down in here and start to cause the stem to rot because it's creating heat in there. never do a foliage spray. Foliage spray on your big plants is great. They love it, right? Your tomato plants and all that other stuff. Microgreens, no, you want to water from the bottom. They're taking all that nutrients up from the water in the bottom of the tray.
And I guess the amount of water is depending on how much is already in there, so you don't want to put too much and not too little.
Right.
And so that's actually just something you're going to have to learn. Somebody's going to have to learn.
Yeah, it's just a rule of thumb. And I use the finger method that you stick your finger in here, and when it comes up to the first knuckle, when you tilt it at about a 45-degree angle, and it comes up to the first knuckle here, that's plenty of water.
So your finger is a dipstick now that you're basically sticking in to make sure that you're right at the right little point.
Exactly.
Just like on a car and a dipstick, make sure you have enough oil in it. All right, cool. Well, you're making things really easy for people if they follow your exact system. What's the sixth mistake that many growers may make when growing microgreens, Larry?
So they think the room should be nice and hot. They think it should be like a greenhouse, high humidity and nice and hot. Well, not for microgreens, because again, they're really dense. And so you don't want the high humidity because you don't want any morning dew filming on the top of the microgreens in the morning and stuff like that. You want the temperature between 68 and 72 degrees. That also keeps the bugs out, because the bugs don't propagate. The bugs start to propagate when the temperature gets above like 75 degrees, 80 degrees in there. They like it nice and warm. They like that sauna effect going on. And you keep the humidity down. 35 to 50% is what we recommend the humidity to be in the grow room. Also, it keeps the smell of the grow room down. And being we're in our house, Jana, my wife, if she smelled microgreens downstairs in our house and everything, as guests would come in and people would be like, what's that smell in your house? Now, there's no smell. You keep that humidity down, there's no smell. The other thing is you got to empty the humidifier. So we empty about two 5-gallon buckets a day worth of water out of this room.
Wow.
Yeah, we dump a lot of water. We dump a lot of water out of the air. So you think that's 10 gallons of water a day that we're dumping.
Wow. So do you run the humidifier 24 hours a day here?
We run the humidifier dehumidifier 24/7. We run the standalone air conditioning here 24/7 in the summertime and in the late fall, early fall. And we have a ductless air conditioning unit up on the top that we run year round.
I see.
There's no heat on in this room. So in the wintertime, the temperature in this room might drop to 30 to 40 degrees. But it's okay for the microgreens because the microgreens are creating enough heat, and the lights are creating enough heat, and the power boxes are creating enough heat that they won't freeze.
So I guess you may not need a dehumidifier, depends on where you live, right? If you live in Las Vegas or Phoenix where it's really dry, that's like the perfect conditions. Don't add a humidifier to make it more humid. You're good there, but if you're in Hawaii, somewhere here like Baltimore, East Coast, it tends to be more humid, then it'd be a really good idea, right?
Right, and I can tell you, some of our best growers are in the more arid areas like Las Vegas, Arizona, New Mexico. Those areas where it's nice and arid, it just seems like the microgreens really grow great down in those areas.
Awesome. All right, Larry, so what's the seventh biggest mistake that growers make when growing microgreens?
Using the wrong substrate.
Wrong substrate or soil. For those guys that aren't into the technical jargon.
Right. So soil, the issue with growing with soil is soil can't be taken into the kitchen. So if you're selling to a chef, you have to cut the microgreens and bring it to him. You can't sell it to him living. So you can't take soil into the kitchen. Cocoa coir. A lot of health department people look at coconut coir and they think it's soil. So therefore that also can't be brought into the grow room. And the other thing is what are you going to do with the coconut coir and the soil after you get done using it each time? Got a big compost pile out back? I don't know, because you're going to have to be cutting it to sell it to the restaurants. Also, there's hemp. So this is another substrate, but the problem with this is too flimsy. You put your microgreens on this, you put it in the tray, you wet it down, pretty soon you go to pick it up and you can't pick it up, it falls all apart. And some of this is certified organic and some of it's not. It's kind of hard to get hemp certified organic in the States, especially if it's growing here because of the legalities of it. It's a nice product, but it's just too flimsy for us, right? If you put it in the tray and you put your seeds on it, a little bit of water, you have to use a spatula to pick it up and put it into a container or whatever. The other thing is there's flex. This is BioStrate. I don't know what's in this. I mean, I had a guy give me some stuff to grow and he called it Cambodian swamp grass. And it looked like this. And I can tell you, I put it in the tray and the microgreens, oh my gosh, they were huge. And I called up and I asked him, I said, what's in that Cambodian swamp grass you got? I said, what kind of fertilizers are you putting in that to make it grow like that? Oh, nothing, I'm not adding anything. And I'm like, you gotta be adding something to that. We grow pure. We only use water. We don't want any fertilizers. We don't want any secondary chemicals or anything coming into our microgreens. So we're not using that. The other thing you gotta be careful is the coconut fiber that you buy. So this is what we grow on. We grow on coconut fiber. We're microgreen growers, right? We grow microgreens. We designed a substrate to grow microgreens. We don't make shoes. We don't make bricks. We don't make anything out of coconut coir. We make growing pads. If you smell that.
All right, yeah.
Kind of smells like a rubber tire.
Yeah.
Way too much latex. And I'm not sure, I don't know the manufacturer of this stuff. I'm not sure what's in the latex. Right, there's what was that?
Casein. It might not be vegan. For those of you guys that are vegan that are worried about that, it's like a protein. They use it as like a glue. Right,
so they add that to soften out the latex. They might be using synthetic latex. I don't know.
All right.
I do know what's in our pad, and I do know it's 100% natural tree gum, which is very concerning to me. You don't know what's being uptaked into your roots. You don't know what you're eating. Hence why we use food-safe plastics and everything else. Right? It's all the way down to the substrate.
Yeah, so the growing medium you're using, whether that's a coconut coir or soil, potting soil, or you want to use some kind of like soilless substrate, basically, which is the anchor and it's going to hold the seeds on. Larry only recommends using the right one that he's researched, he's developed, he's worked with manufacturers to get the right, consistency, the right, gums that hold together that's like non-toxic, all vegan, doesn't have any casein in there. And if you're getting, ones just randomly on Amazon because it's 5 cents cheaper, right? It's not the right one. It may not work. It may hold too much moisture, and it also may not break down. Also, let me smell yours. Oh wow, yeah, yours has a much more mild like scent. Like this one's a lot stronger. So what can happen to somebody who's using like say coconut coir, right?
So coconut coir is
it's used a lot. I see most people are using that.
Right. So coconut coir is good. I mean, I'm not knocking the coconut coir, but you can't grow hydroponically with it. You can't grow. You have to grow in 10, 20 trays, or you can grow in these trays that we have. But it's not a hydroponic operation. It's a traditional growing method where you're putting the seeds down inside the coconut coir, right, or the soil. And we decided that we wanted to grow hydroponically and that we wanted to control the amount of nutrients going into the plants where we just feed it water and that's it. Don't know what's in the coconut coir that you're buying, don't know what's in the soil that you're buying, the potting mix that you're buying. I know what's in this and I know what's in the water that I'm giving to the plants. So therefore, we're going 100% pure.
Yeah, just basically taking out some of the issues because I've ran across people that have been buying coconut coir from one source. They're using it successfully for a period of time, and then all of a sudden, even though they order from the same place, their grow fails because the product is inconsistent. There's inconsistencies. Coconut coir could not be washed properly, could have too many salts. So basically what Larry's done is, once again, created a system, so it's just going to work straight every single time, and you're going to be successful. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you guys to use what Larry knows works and what he's designed to work instead of one that might look like the same thing, but it's totally not. All right. So Larry, what's the next mistake that many growers can make?
Seeds.
Seeds. Oh, that's huge.
Buying the wrong seeds, buying not certified seed men, right? So you got to make sure that when you buy seeds that they have this nice label on it that talks about the germination rates, when the seeds were harvested, all that stuff.
Lot number,
trackable. Exactly, because if somebody gets sick from your microgreens and the health department shows up at your farm and they want to know where you bought those seeds from, I bought them from John's City Hydro. Right? Nah, that doesn't work. They want to see a tag like this, and you could be held liable. Who knows, right?
Yeah, if you're growing them for yourself, just for personal consumption, right? They may have mold or contamination issues. They may not grow properly. You just don't know. So I always want to encourage you guys to be safe rather than sorry. Some seeds could have E. coli, and I know some seed sellers, when they're selling sprouting seeds, they test those and they go out for microbial tests before they're sold for growing sprouts.
The other thing is treated seeds. So you don't know if you're buying from some eBay channel or Amazon where the guy's not a USDA certified seedman, you could be buying treated seeds. Now, treated seeds aren't so bad if I'm a farmer and I'm planting a seed here, and a seed here, and a seed here. Treated seeds, it's going to dissipate the fungicides and everything else that are on those seeds.
Yeah, they're going to grow up into a big plant, and after, it's not a big problem because you're not cutting them small and eating a lot of them.
Right, but if I'm doing this, and I'm putting thousands of seeds on this pad, and these trees are seeded, these seeds are treated, you're going to get a lot of chemicals down inside the water that's going to get uptaked into the roots. The other thing is all treated seeds are marked, and they say poisonous, not for human consumption. That's because you're not supposed to be eating them. Now, I've had people contact me about sunflower seeds, and the guy was selling them dirt cheap, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing price. How are you getting that price? And he told me, I go down to the Walmart and I buy the bird seed. And I said, you do what? He said, I go down to the Walmart and I buy the bird seed, I repackage it, and I sell it. He said, that's how come I can sell it for so cheap. And I said, do you know those seeds are treated? Those seeds are not for human consumption. If you look right on the bag of your bird seed, it says not for human consumption.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. Even some seed companies that I've contacted, they ask me, because I'm buying so many seeds, they say, you're not eating those seeds, are you? Even though they're not treated, they're still concerned about people eating large quantities of raw seeds. So the seed companies where you're buying from, you need to make sure that they're certified. Mountain Valley, Johnny's, Mums, all those guys are certified seed providers. Some of them aren't. Just buyer beware.
Yeah, so make sure you get the proper seeds for growing microgreens and that they're labeled as such, not just some random seed seller on Amazon or eBay where you could I'm saving so much money. You just don't know. You could have issues, contamination, treated. Do yourselves a favor, get the right seeds. All right, Larry, so what's mistake number 9 that people make when growing microgreens?
Growing in non-food safe plastics.
Why does that make a difference?
Leaching.
Leaching.
This is that black tray. This is that famous black tray.
Everybody uses those though in the whole microgreens industry, man.
Everybody does. In fact, I can tell you, so we're working on some new plastics. So the plastic lady came to talk to us, and she was telling us about these trays and how bad they are. And especially if they're made in third world countries where there's no regulations of what they're putting in the plastic.
China.
What they're putting in for fillers in the trays. These are plastic trays. They fall apart. PVC has been proven to leach lead into water systems. So fertilizer, if you're using fertilizer, it's corrosive, right? So it eats into the plastic, it draws all the chemicals out either into your water system that you're feeding your plants, or into the soil itself if you're using fertilizers. Even if you're not using fertilizers, letting water sit in a tray that's non-food safe plastic will still leach things out. So this is non-food safe at all. I have no idea what this is made of. I know it's plastic, but I don't know what's in it. It's just really bad. This is another tray. Now, this
that looks better, man. It's nice and hard plastic. It's not this flexible junk.
Right, but it's ABS plastic, right? So it's non-food safe. It's not certified food safe. Even though some people out there say, hey, my trays are food safe, I ask, oh, your trays are food safe. Are they certified FDA food safe? If they're not certified food safe, I won't use them. We don't use any non-certified food safe plastics in this room at all. From our bus tubs to our water buckets or anything, got to be certified food safe.
And so what problem will that cause to the grower growing microgreens? I mean, the microgreens grow fine in here, right?
Grow fine in here. You're not going to get sick tomorrow if you eat them. It's a residual effect, right? You keep eating stuff that's grown in non-food safe plastics, it's a matter of time before you develop either cancer or something else from the lead. I mean, take children. It takes a grain of salt, the size of a grain of salt of lead, when they're in development, when their brain's in the development stage, to have issues. Right? They don't have issues that day. They're not drinking some water with lead in it and getting sick that day. It's years later down the road. Toxic buildup. I mean, look at glyphosate.
Glyphosate.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so use the right trays, guys. I mean, if you're using these guys now, hey, upgrade yourself, your lives, to the nicer trays. I mean, they cost more money, right? These guys are cheap. If people get these at grocery stores and all this kind of stuff, super cheap. those guys will set you back. But those guys, I mean, literally the ones that I saw last year when I was here, they're still in circulation. They're still working. They last like years and years. They'll outlast these guys by like 100 times easily.
They actually have a lifetime guarantee on them.
Wow, lifetime guarantee. So you use them forever until your life ends. You'll be growing in these the food safe grow trays. All right, Larry. So I think we're down to the last mistake that people make when they're growing microgreens, and I think this is a pretty big one, right?
Yeah. So, like everybody, when I first started growing microgreens, I thought I had to grow every kind of microgreen. I grew 80 some plus different kinds of microgreens. I thought it was fantastic. Caused me a lot of issues because some seeds are much harder to grow, some seeds are much easier to grow. I was trying things with chefs. Chefs would call me up and say, you know, I really didn't much care for that red tun. And
red tun? Is that something?
Yeah, red tun is actually a mahogany tree out of Tibet.
Oh, I got some seed for that because I want to grow one day. I want to eat those. I want to see what it tastes like.
It's $225 a pound for the seeds. It tastes like fried onions.
Wow, that's crazy.
Amazing flavor, but at $225 a pound for the seeds, the return on investment for that tray isn't there. Growing amaranth. Amaranth is a really nice looking microgreen. It's really difficult to grow it. Everybody has issues growing amaranth, whether they're growing in soil, coconut coir, on our pads, in hemp. There are always kinds of issues with amaranth. Why grow it? I can tell you, our chefs don't much care for amaranth. It just doesn't look good on a plate. It tastes great, has a nice spinach flavor to it, but it's too difficult to grow. Sunflowers. This year was a really bad year for sunflower seeds. Lots of mold in the sunflower seeds. People were getting lots of moldy trays of sunflowers because the previous year was so wet. This year's even wetter to me. I mean, I don't know, we've been getting rain every freaking day here. So lots of mold in it. So it's a difficult plant to grow. I can tell you, if all I had to do was grow 3 kinds of microgreens, I would grow 3 types of microgreens. I would grow leek, peas, and radish.
Those are the easiest ones?
Easiest ones to grow. And the best return on investment. Radishes are cheap, peas are dirt cheap, right? Leek's a little bit more expensive, but seed-wise. You know, amaranth is an expensive seed. Basil is an expensive seed. If you lose a tray of amaranth or a tray of basil, you lost a lot of money. If you lose a tray of peas, you don't lose so much money.
So the mistake is don't grow the wrong kinds of microgreens. Choose the ones that are the easiest to grow, especially if you're a beginner. You know, if you've been growing microgreens for 5 years like Larry, you want to experiment with some harder ones to grow. I mean, he has the skills now to do that if he wants to, but I want you guys to start off and follow what he says. I mean, he's been doing this, running this business now for 5 years successfully. So the leeks, the radishes, and the peas. Oh, and what kind of peas? Because I know there's different kinds of, you know, radishes, and they're all pretty much going to grow fast, just like in my garden.
Right.
But what kind of peas specifically? Because I know some peas may do better than others, right?
Sure. So we grow one kind of peas. We used to grow a bunch of different kinds of peas. We found that the green sprouting peas or the Aphila peas were the best ones to grow because they grow to a certain height and they kind of start to slow down. Like Australian field peas or dung peas or those other peas, they just keep growing. Pretty soon you've got a tree coming out of the tray. With the Aphila peas or the sprouting peas, they don't get bigger than 7 to 10 inches and they get a lot of nice tentacles on them. And the chefs love all those little tentacles coming out because it looks great on the plate. Plus they have a really sweet pea flavor to them. Radishes, we grow Rambo radish with China rose mixed. So we use a mixture of seeds there because we get a nice purple and green texture in the tray.
Oh, and then the leeks, what kind of leeks do you grow?
So leeks, we grow American flag leek, and we leave the little black seeds on the top. It kind of gives it that oniony bagel flavor to it, and it's a really nice looking black and black little nib on the top with a nice green base.
Yeah, it actually makes me hungry. Wants me to eat some leeks right now, actually. Wow, so Larry's there. He has it. He's shared with you guys the 10 biggest mistakes when growing microgreens. So now you guys could avoid doing those mistakes so you guys be successful at growing microgreens. So Larry, before we go, do you have any other final tips or comments or words of wisdom you want to share with my viewers today about growing microgreens?
Nah, have fun. It's amazing, and don't give up. So a lot of people start doing their trays, and maybe the first 2 or 3 trays don't turn out, right? Keep going, keep at it. if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? I keep up to it. I just keep after it and go after it and go after it. I can tell you the amount of people that have come here for training and the successful amount of people that we have is amazing because they kept at it. They didn't give up.
Yep. I mean, that's what I want to encourage you guys to do, right? There's always a way. You will figure it out. You know, don't give up. I like to say, you know, if you did it unsuccessfully or you made a mistake, that's a success because you learned successfully how not to do something, right? And if you want to play around and watch videos to grow microgreens, hey, that's great. I encourage you guys to do that. Start experimenting today. Start trying to grow things. See what happens. If you can't afford the expensive food safe ones, hey, you know, try to get some kind of trays, whatever you guys can to start growing microgreens. At least it's better than nothing. When you get some money, then, you know, then get the upgrade. But here's the thing, right? If you guys are really serious about growing microgreens, right, you want to learn from an expert, right? Learning on YouTube is great, but, you know, Larry has an amazing deal that if for $1,000, you'll literally get a grow setup just like this you see behind him, right? You'll get the setup. But also, he's going to give you 2 days of free training here. That's only if you buy the kit. You can't get the free training without the kit there. And you're going to come here to Baltimore in this very room that I'm sitting at, and you're going to go for 2 full days of learning how to grow the microgreens so that you're not going to make any mistakes, and you will be successful at growing microgreens. And my personal opinion is that it's probably the best $1,000 if you want to grow some food that you're ever going to spend, because you're going to be set up with a rack with a proven success strategy that totally works. Plus, you're gonna get 2 days of training, like hands-on with other people that are learning with you at the same time, so that you could go home and literally feed your family for life with the training and the supplies that Larry will be providing you. So yeah, check the link down below, how to grow microgreens and make $100,000 a year that I did here with Larry. That pretty much explains the whole setup. He's changed a few things since I was here last. But that's pretty much it for this episode, right? Microgreens, I will say, are probably one of the most nutritious foods on the planet. I believe everybody should be growing them. And when I come to your house to visit, just feed me some microgreens. I'll be quite happy, actually. So, anyways, if you guys enjoyed this episode here with Larry learning about microgreens, hey, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Get lots of thumbs ups. I'll come back next time I'm here in Baltimore, do another video with Larry so you guys could learn from his wisdom and get inspired to grow and be successful at growing more microgreens. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming episodes that are coming out every 3 to 4 days. You never know where I'll show up or what you'll be learning. And make sure, if you're already a subscriber or a new subscriber, click the little bell. It's very important so you get notified. YouTube will actually send you a notification that, hey, John posted a new video today, so you can watch it before anybody else and learn as I'm learning, literally, in all my travels and in my backyard growing food for myself. Also, be sure to check my past episodes. Oh my God, my past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 1,400 episodes at this time. Teach you guys all aspects on how you guys can grow your own food at home, whether that's microgreens or full-size crops or fruit trees. I got videos on all those topics. So yeah, be sure to check those out. And also be sure to share this video with somebody else, somebody that has been trying to grow microgreens unsuccessfully. Once they hear Larry's tips, that'll definitely set them on the trajectory to being more successful. So with that, my name is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep on growing. To take a moment out of this episode today to remind you guys that we're still doing Growing Your Greens t-shirt fundraiser. So if you want to support me and my work, you could definitely buy a Growing Your Greens t-shirt that directly supports me to allow me to continue to make my educational videos. Plus, you definitely get a really cool organic cotton Growing Your Greens t-shirt. So yeah, check the link down below, compassiontees.com. Link is also at the end of this video. So when you're done watching the video, click over and support me while you still can, and also get a cool organic t-shirt at the same time.